the Art Lewis Show here on WSGW. Later on, after the 10 o'clock news, we will learn about a church celebrating 175 years. St. Michael's in Richville. We have a number of guests coming in this morning, and they'll be with us from 10 o'clock on right through the end, about 11:30 this morning. But for this hour, we're going to talk about the economy. A lot of stories you hear in the economy, but what does it mean to you and what does it mean to the economy, namely the Federal Reserve and others? And we have a gentleman with us this morning to talk about it who's made it his life work to study it. He also happens to be the president, CEO, or the chair. I don't know, what are you, president or CEO? President or chair?
President and CEO.
President and CEO of Dow Credit Union. He is Michael Goode. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Art. Always great to be here.
Good to see you. All right, so let's start out with the Federal Reserve. We hear the news all the time. Will they, won't they raise the level? Will they lower the rate? All of this goes on amongst the news of the world.
Yeah.
And one day we hear they're going to raise it. One day they hear they're going to lower it. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. What does it all mean? Why do we care what the Federal Reserve does?
Excellent. Hey, so thank you for such a simple question, Art.
Try
Okay,
and start out
we'll cover
easy.
it in 32 seconds. All right. Hey, listen. So first of all, the Federal Reserve does several things, from consumer protection to bank regulations and overseeing banks.
Which is why they got started, right?
Yeah. But they're also responsible for what's called monetary policy. And they have what's called the dual mandate, okay? And that is for, number one, price stability, and number two, maximum employment. So I'll bet you try to do several things at the same time, okay, when you're on the air, right? Well, the Fed is trying to do two things. They want to have inflation be under control and as many people employed as possible, okay? And so...
Well, they're wonderful goals.
Yeah.
Nobody argue with the goal, right?
Yes. And typically what happens is when the economy gets stronger and inflation starts going up, what the Federal Reserve does is they will raise short-term interest rates, okay? They try to get inflation under control by making the cost of money higher, okay? So if they raise short-term interest rates, then you and I and other consumers, it costs us more to borrow. It costs us more to pay interest. It costs businesses more to borrow and pay interest. That tends to slow the economy a little bit and slow inflation. And vice versa, when the economy seems sluggish, when jobs are decreasing and unemployment is rising, the Federal Reserve will lower interest rates. They want to lower the cost of money, so then people have more money to spend on getting an auto loan, going on vacation, putting that addition onto their house. Yeah. And so that's the general mechanism that they use.
So do they also control the printing of the money? How much is printed?
Yeah, that's a more complicated question.
Good.
So in a sense. Okay,
I asked that because it always seemed to me that the Fed was created back in, 1916 or 13 or somewhere back there, because the banking industry was having problems. But one of the other reasons that I heard expressed over years was to take monetary policy out of the hands of Congress.
Yes.
Is that true?
A little bit. Okay. When the Treasury, which reports to the president, when they issue extra debt, okay, when we spend more than we take in as a country,
every day,
we're printing new money in effect, by issuing debt, okay? Then the Federal Reserve, sometimes they will buy bonds out of the market or sell bonds to the market, and they affect the money supply too. So it really is a combination of both what the Treasury is doing and what the Federal Reserve is doing.
All right, so let's take it down to a basic. Federal Reserve acts, raise rates, lower rate. The feds add to the debt. When all is said and done, how does it impact you as a credit union? And then how does that impact your customers?
Yeah. So good question. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what it takes to get rid of inflation or get it under control. So, right, the last couple of years, so after the pandemic, we all know that we had a big increase in inflation. The Federal Reserve raised rates. They raised them a lot, okay,
Right.
all the way from 0.25 as the short-term rate to 5.75. It was a big impact. That slowed things down. Inflation started coming down. So they started lowering the short-term rate a little bit. As recently as January of 2026, the inflation rate was about 2.5%. They have a long-term goal of it getting to 2. So 2.5% was pretty good, right? I'm waiting for Art to shake his head.
I'm listening. 2.5 was better than 5, no
Yes.
doubt.
2.5 as inflation rate was good. But then what happened in late February? The Iran war, spike in oil. So prices started going up again. And as recently as just a few months ago, the inflation rate in May was 4.2%. So prices were up 4.2 compared to a year earlier in May. Now, they did tick down a little bit in June to 3.5. But still, if the Fed says our long-term goal is to have inflation at 2%, we want it to get there, well, it's not there yet. So that's why every 6 weeks when they're meeting now, it's a big debate. Should we raise interest rates again and make money cost more so that we can get that inflation rate down to 2?
So let me ask a stupid question. Why 2%? Is that a realistic number?
I'll tell you why I think it's 2, and great question, because for years and years, let's you and I think back to 70s, 80s, 90s. Okay,
Yep.
Inflation wasn't 2 most of those periods.
No.
Okay, it was higher, and even it was okay at 4, 5, and 6.
And
for,
the Carter years,
for much of that time, yeah.
The Carter years, 17, 18%.
But once we got into the 2000s and the 2010s, we had NAFTA, we had China in the World Trade Organization, we had the cost of international shipping go down. Prices naturally, because of many factors, came down, and inflation on its own was running 0.5, 1.5, 2. So the Fed picked 2 back in a period when that's kind of where it was. Okay, it wasn't super high; it was already there, and so
It's
that's
kind of
what
arbitrary, though, wasn't it?
Well, it's arbitrary based on where we were. Okay, but they're thinking of that's a reasonable level to have prices creep up a little and have some energy in the economy, but prices not get out of control. So I don't think it's a bad number.
No, I didn't say it was a bad number. I just wondered how it became the number.
Yeah.
It's because if year after year we go to the grocery store and it's 2%, we sort of expect there's going to be some price increase.
Mm-hmm.
What we've seen in the past couple of years, of course, blew that out of the water.
Right.
And what goes up doesn't come down as fast,
Oh, exactly.
ever.
Yeah, and so they also want it to be slightly positive because they don't want it to be negative. As soon as you start having deflation, then that's an incentive for people to not do something today because they think that costs are going to go down tomorrow, and then that destroys economic
Yeah, it's
activity.
interesting,
So having
isn't
it
it?
be slightly positive is really the sweet spot they're shooting for.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. Come back. We're talking to Michael Goad. He is the president and CEO of Dow Credit Union. We're talking about the Federal Reserve and the economy and all kinds of good financial things coming up after these notes.
Campaign season is funny.
SGW, the Art Lewis Show, in studio with me. Michael Goad, he is the president and CEO of Dow Credit Union. We're talking about the economy and financial, Federal Reserve, and those kinds of things, and how it impacts us in our daily lives. The Federal Reserve, when it was formed, the banking industry was having all kinds of issues. They were kind of running amok. And the Federal Reserve comes together. Has the power of the Federal Reserve over the time, from the time they were created back in the early 1900s to today, has that power changed? Has the basic premise of the organization changed?
You know, I don't think the power has changed that much. Is that there was a fundamental change in the early 70s when we came off the gold standard, okay? And I'm not saying that was a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying that the money supply used to be very fixed. I'm not going to say it was perfectly fixed, but it used to be very fixed.
Gold was fixed, $32 an ounce, if I remember
and so
right.
now it's variable, and that means that the Fed has flexibility. Oh, when things are slow, they can increase the money supply, lower interest rates. That helps things out some, right? When things are fast, they can decrease the money supply, raise interest rates, and slow down inflation. So it's given them tools for managing the economy, but it's also been a way, I think, to paper over the effects of the growing federal deficit and federal debt. You were mentioning off the air, the size of the federal debt. And here we are sitting at, like 125% of GDP. And who would have thought that, the world isn't ending? Oh, the federal debt is this high and we're still okay. I think one of the reasons is because we have a flexible Fed that can manage interest rates and, again, take the edges off of economic swings.
It used to be when you heard about financial news, everybody said, well, if the debt ever exceeds GDP, we're in trouble, And then it did. And now nobody seems to care.
Right.
So, I don't understand it. And I often heard that the reason we're technically not broke as a country is because of the value of all the land we hold as a nation in trust. And that land has value, and thus that value gives your portfolio a positive
Yep.
as opposed to a negative, which the debt gives you. Is it true? And what does it mean to us?
I honestly have not followed that argument that closely. Okay, I think what means more to us is a fiat currency. Our currency has value because people want to own it. Our debt is bought. One big reason, Art, is that because the amount of wealth in the country continues to increase, and so people, investors, have extra money to invest, put it in their credit union account, put it in their bank account, put it into bonds, put it into stocks. And so there's been demand for government bonds. And one thing that we keep an eye on is that Japan has been ahead of us by like 20 or 30 years as far as increasing their debt. And it's been amazing. Their debt skyrocketed in the 90s, and we were all waiting for the currency to crash and for things to blow up over there. And it really didn't, because the Japanese were buying their country's own debt. So I don't have a top on this. We've all been trying to put a top on what happens when the national debt gets to X, and it really hasn't played out. We all know in our gut it's not a good thing, but it's been very hard to predict exactly what kind of an unwind would occur.
But it also has a very negative effect on what government can do for its own people. By that I mean, if I have to take $1 trillion out of my treasury that I could have used for roads, for you name it, and simply pay interest,
Oh, bingo.
that's money I can't spend in the economy.
Yeah, it really is kind of a feedback loop, because I don't have the number precisely, but I think that, what we're heading towards is 30 to 40% of the expenditures on interest on the debt. And so, to your exact point, what that means is that we don't have money for other programs, but we are not willing to cut those programs, so we end up borrowing more. So that's the conundrum that the growing debt creates.
Is it because we, the voting public, other than when we go to the store, prices are a little bit higher, and all of that, inflation, we don't feel the debt in our pocketbook in a way that we say that our pocketbook is hurting because of that debt?
Right?
We don't feel it that way, do we?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. And just to repeat the point, I mean, you and I have probably been thinking about this for decades, and it hasn't blown up. And so if it hasn't blown up, everyone's like, oh, whatever. My party's in power. We're going to increase the debt because we want more benefits. Oh, my party's in power. We're going to increase the debt because we want lower taxes. And it just keeps going up.
Well, we're going to increase the debt because we know that free buys votes. So, but I look at it like it hasn't blown up, but that's like saying I'm blowing up a balloon and I reach that point of that balloon almost busting. So I let a little of the air out.
Yeah.
And then I start blowing it up again. And eventually it's going to fail. Eventually. You
Yes.
haven't reached it yet.
Yes. And like I said, there are examples around the world of economies where it got out of control and then they ended up having to step in and monetize debt, triggered more inflation, lowered the value of their currency, which made imports more expensive. There's various things that could happen. But again, I'm not predicting any of them because so far we've continued to be able to whistle past the graveyard and get away with it.
So let's talk about tariffs for a moment.
Well, you didn't warn me about that one coming.
I do think tariffs are a legitimate function of government as they deal with other governments, but it's gotten way out of whack, hasn't it?
Well, what I will tell you is I love to read numerous sources, okay? And a couple of the sources that I keep my eyes closely on are I have a Bloomberg terminal at work, and they have a great news feed, and also the Wall Street Journal. And the Wall Street Journal tends to be a pretty conservative organization,
They
right?
are. Yep.
And they've called tariffs a tax, and they've walked through exactly what it means with who's paying for it. It's taken a while for us to walk through what exactly we are authorized to do with tariffs and what we're not authorized to do. The Constitution says that Congress will impose tariffs.
But Congress also gave loopholes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of loopholes where a president can insert,
Yeah.
The thing about, and it's interesting you bring up the Wall Street Journal calling it a tax. I have said throughout my career, if government imposes it, I don't care what they call it, it's a tax.
Mm-hmm.
They impose a fee, it's a tax.
Mm-hmm.
They impose a tariff, it's a tax. They impose a tax, it's a tax. It's semantics. The
Right.
bottom line, it comes out of our pocket.
Yeah.
And government has nothing that doesn't come out of our pocket.
Yes.
Where else do they get money? People say, oh, well, businesses pay tax. Where does business get their money? Businesses don't pay tax. People do.
Right. So it's been very interesting to see how this has developed because, like you said, it is a legitimate discussion, right?
Well, it's a necessary discussion.
It is a legit discussion, but then how it gets implemented, there are different approaches.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. Come back. We're talking to Michael Goad. He is the president and CEO at Dow Credit Union. We'll be back.
My name is Gabe Lossing, and I'm running.
And we're back with you in studio with me, the president and CEO of Dow Credit Union. He is Michael Goad. We're talking about the economy and finances and things, and you just looked about the percentage of interest represented in the federal budget.
Yes. Yeah. So actually today, the interest payments are only between 16 and 20% of the total budget.
Only.
Yes. What I was remembering, though, is an article that said if interest rates stay at this higher level, as all of that debt reprices, it would naturally
Up.
raise the percentage to 30 or 40%. But today it's only 16 to 20. Like you were saying, what if 16 to 20% of my personal household income was spent on interest on debt? So yeah, it's quite a high number.
It's amazing. And yet, we think about that and we say that. But the private debt in this country is enormous, isn't it?
Private debt is high, but it's not as high as it was per capita or as a percent of income as 2008. So we really are not as bad as you might think.
Because you make your living on it.
Yes, we make our living on it, yeah. And we love to help people when debt makes sense, and we can help them with their housing, with their lifestyle, with their cash flow needs. But also, the job of credit unions is to make sure that people are only borrowing what they can afford to monitor and to service. And yeah, it's a great calling to be in.
How did we get into that subprime position we were in a while back where all of a sudden everything went to heck in a handbag?
Yeah. Let me give you the short story.
We have time. I'd like to hear the whole
Okay, perfect. Well, Art, if I told you that housing prices will always go up. So therefore, how much of a down payment do you need? How much do you need to be worried about the underwriting? Oh, who cares about the underwriting? If housing prices are always going to go up, if somebody gets in trouble, they can always sell their condo, they can always sell their house for more and pay off their debt. That's the short story of what was going on back then. So because we did have a run in the early 2000s where housing prices were so stable and actually grew year after year after year, it was simple for lenders to think, oh, okay, we need more business. We're going to try to help people more. We'll allow less of a down payment. We'll actually allow people to borrow more than a house is worth.
Yeah.
Okay? Because we're
You're
confident
betting on
that
the come, though.
you're betting. I said, what would you do if you truly believed that housing prices will go up every year forever? In my mind, that's exactly what triggered it. There are a number of things that happened, but underwriting got looser and looser and looser because that actually proved to be true for several years, and it reinforced underwriting that was more pervasive, that allowed lower down payments and allowed people to have tighter budgets.
Have the prices of homes today caused us to rethink how much money you need up front? And here's why I asked that. 30, 40 years ago, I could build a starter home, let's say 1,500 square feet. I could probably build it for $30, $40, $50 a square foot. You maybe be able to sell the house for less than $100,000, maybe a little more than $100,000. You build that 1,500 square foot house today at starting 300 square foot. You're selling that house for 400 some odd thousand. Who's buying?
It is a very difficult market for first-time home buyers and for middle income and lower income people, right? In order to get into home ownership. There's lots of factors there, right? I'm sure you've had people on here talking about whether it's the cost of the materials, the cost of regulation. Well, the cost
It's always
of,
a combination
yeah,
of things.
yeah, the cost of some of our local policies that restrict types of building that can be done. But yes, and I've got kids. My kids are 35, 33, and 28. Okay? One of them owns a home. The other two don't yet. But this is a typical family conversation for us and what it costs to get in. And it's a big down payment in today's world now. Thankfully, there are programs that allow lower down payments. There's private mortgage insurance. But still, the cost of housing is quite elevated compared to pre-pandemic. Now, I will throw out a little bit of positive, right? Are we ready for positive today, Art? Okay. Especially in some of the states where there were the biggest housing increases, housing prices have been coming down a little bit. Florida, Texas, some other parts of the South. In Michigan, we didn't have, even though we did have an increase, we didn't have as much as some other states. So I think it's leveled out to slightly down here.
So the question is, for the Floridas and Texases and Arizonas of the world, where there seems to be a migration demand, how long before that demand drives those prices back up again?
Yeah, well, we will see. I read an article recently about the slower migration into Florida. Florida is no longer the inexpensive state to go retire
housing
in.
is expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, taxes are lower, but housing is very expensive.
And I recently read an article. The latest number is that approximately 11,000 baby boomers are retiring every day. Okay, Art, every day. Now I'm looking at you as a great example of just because
I'm
you turn
a war
60,
baby.
yeah, just because you turn 65 doesn't mean necessarily retire.
That's right.
But if 11,000 people are turning 65 per day, many are going south, and that's continuing to be a driver of that economy down there.
Couple the fact that there was a bidding war for houses for quite a while. You have an asking price of, pick a number, 200,000. I was like the starting price, because then the next guy offers you 210, somebody else says 220, and all that money is over and above what you can finance. You won't finance that overage.
Right. And that's a very tricky position when it comes to buying a house and getting a transaction done, okay? Because credit unions, banks, and for many of us, we make and sell loans to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and they're only going to lend against, and we only lend against the appraised value of a home. And if you end up, because of a bidding war, wanting to pay $50,000 more, we're not going to count that as the value of the house.
Yeah.
And so it is a very tricky situation.
Do you still require 20% down?
There are different levels of down payment.
Okay, hold
And
that
like-
thought. We'll come
yes.
back to it. Got to take a break. We're talking to Michael Goad. He is the president and CEO of Dow Credit Union, about the economy and finances and all that good stuff. Let me take a moment to talk about something not so good, potholes, because if you hit enough of them, you're going to affect the alignment in your vehicle, and that will impact how your car drives, how its tires wear, how much it costs you in the long run. Our friends at Quick Lane Freeland are offering you a complimentary alignment check. Just take your car in, ask for it. It takes about 15-20 minutes. They put it up on a rack. They attach these laser devices to your wheels, and they have another device that reads all of those. And in a short period of time, after they do some adjustments, you end up with a printout. Tells you exactly what your alignment looks like, and if you get all greens, you're good to go. And also, if you need tires, remember they sell their tires at just $5 over cost. It all happens at Quick Lane Freeland on the McDonald Ford property in Freeland. Stop in today. Get your alignment checked. Also, remember that Quick Lane Freeland sells all their new tires for just $5 over cost. Quick Lane Freeland and McDonald Ford, two names standing ready to help you with all your auto needs in 2026.
Gotta go.
Back with you and chatting with Michael Goad, who is the president and CEO of Dow Credit Union. So we live here in Michigan. What kind of shape is Michigan in?
Well, Art, let me ask you, okay, can you finish my sentence for me? The population in the state of Michigan is,
Stable.
and I'll ask you to give me a different answer to it. And number one, I agree with that. The population in the state of Michigan is
Older.
okay. Yeah, so I'm looking at you and I are a sample of two in this room, but according to recent statistics, about a third of our population is 55 or older. So that's just a reality. It's not a complaint. It's just a reality. So that's the world we live in, and we actually have done a pretty good job compared to other northern states when you read about the statistics of New York, Illinois, and even California, and population shifts to other states. You know, we lost population a couple of years, but then recently we've gained. Okay, so we've got some good things going on here, and we have to keep pushing for, on the policy level, supporting businesses, supporting initiatives that can bring young workers and young families and strengthen the core of Michigan.
Recently, the budget was adopted. $76 billion. But it was kind of a shell game, wasn't it?
You know,
a little bit.
I'm not an expert on the state budget. I do know that they moved some items off official budget that were funded by funds from Washington, and so they didn't want to count that as part of the federal budget. So I have not gone back and tick and tied with and without that. What I do know is I did read that there was a real increase in the public school funding. Okay, and I believe that education got a little bit of a shot in the arm, and that's so important. You know, we have this interesting mixture of a little bit of federal involvement, but then state involvement and local school board involvement.
Yeah.
And so it's neat when you're close to that energy, but that's important for us to keep focusing there.
Careful, you're going to trigger me here. You know, listen, teachers, to me, are the absolute best. But throwing money at the education system in this state has not paid off for us. When you throw money at it and you're 44th in the nation in third grade reading, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to fix that.
Yeah,
That's got to be fixed.
And I know that there are good people working on that.
There are.
So
I have always felt what makes the feds or the state smarter than the local people that run our schools.
Right.
And that's me. That's a whole nother show.
And that's not the Federal Reserve or interest rates.
That's right.
And so I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole, okay, Art?
Smart. So let's finish with the Federal Reserve and interest rates. We look into the gold crystal ball. What do you see?
So I'll give you a couple scenarios, okay? How about that for a good economist? Never gives one for, because I really believe that the Fed is going to keep rates level, maybe one more meeting, and then if they do raise, they'll raise rates a little bit. I believe that this oil increase is going to pass, and that will naturally bring some rates down. But once inflation gets going, it's hard to get rid of it.
Yeah. Michael, thanks for being with us today. This was great. We'll have to do it again.
Always good to talk with you, Art.
All right. News coming up next, then we'll be back to talk about St. Michael's in Richville.
When something goes wrong,
From ABC News, I'm Sherry Preston. Stocks surged this morning at the open. The S&P was up 0.5% right off the bell. The Dow adding about 41 points this hour. NASDAQ showing gains after Amazon reported a much stronger profit in the last quarter than expected. Also collecting some big profits in the second quarter. Big oil.
The U.S.-Iran conflict has reduced tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz to a trickle. In response, the major oil companies have raised the price of their refined products, pushing gasoline past the $4 mark. For U.S. and European oil companies, the strategy has worked. Most reported massive increases in second quarter profit as the war drags on.
ABC's Jim Ryan. Exxon profits up 105%. Chevron's profits up more than 300%. President Trump holds a cabinet meeting at Camp David today, and there in the Attorney General's seat will be Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, whose confirmation is still being held up by two Republican senators, John Cornyn and Thom Tillis.
The senators are refusing to back Blanche until they get written proof that a $1.8 billion fund, which would have paid taxpayer dollars to Trump's political allies, including January 6th rioters, is officially dead, something Blanche already told Congress 2 weeks ago. But that wasn't enough for Cornyn, who claims the White House is standing in his way.
ABC's Jay O'Brien. Senator Tillis says one of Donald Trump's advisors want to revive the fund, which would also provide IRS immunity for the president and his family. A heat dome across the West, putting about 70 million people under warnings. As for the Pacific Northwest, wildfires are the main concern.
Oregon may be started on what could be their worst fire season in history. That's how hot and dry it's been here. What makes this worse? Wind gusts anywhere from 40 to 75 miles per hour.
ABC meteorologist Sam Champion. State of New York suing Kalshi, alleging its prediction market is nothing more than illegal, unlicensed gambling. You're listening to ABC News.
Haven't switched to Pure Talk because you're not sure their coverage is every bit as reliable as Big Wireless. Why not take them for a test drive? For a limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited data plan. No contracts, no commitments. Just a great deal on a high-speed network with unlimited data from an American wireless company. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings begin.
These days, heading back to school means more than pencils and notebooks. It means laptops, tablets, online accounts, and a lot of personal information moving across the internet. WebRoot Total Protection gives families powerful online defense tools with antivirus, VPN, cloud backup, identity protection, and more, helping keep your digital life secure throughout the school year and beyond. Go to webroot.com/radio and get 60% off today. That's webroot.com/radio for 60% off. Live a better digital life with WebRoot, because peace of mind shouldn't be optional.
It's time.